What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. This is going to be a quick one here. Huge news today as Jonathan Taylor, the deadline to put players or, remove them from the camp PUP list and get them activated for the season was today at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Jonathan Taylor was rumored to be traded to the Miami Dolphins. He ultimately was not, and he was left on the PUP list, which means he's going to be on the pup list for the first 4 games of the year. So he's essentially out 4 games. He's still on the Colts, still angry about his contract, and we don't really know what's going on here. At some point, he still could get traded this year. We don't really know how it's going to go. So in this video, we're going to talk about how I'm projecting Jonathan Taylor in this Colts running back field. I'm not super excited about the situations of the Colts in fantasy. I do like Anthony Richardson. He's probably the only Colt that I will actually draft on my teams this year. I think Michael Pittman, you can maybe make a case. Alec Pierce is maybe for deeper leagues. But we're going to be, if Jonathan Taylor's not there the first 6 games or the first 4 games, we're going to be interested in the only 3 running backs that they have currently on the roster, and that is Evan Hall, Deion Jackson, and Zach Moss. But this video is about Jonathan Taylor. We'll talk about those guys after we talk about JT. So what I have projected for Jonathan Taylor right now is about 205 carries for 975 yards and 9 touchdowns. Now in 13, if you take 205 and divide that by 13, that's going to be about 15.7 carries per game. So maybe I'm projecting him to play 12 to 13 games with the Colts here. Now, the yards are kind of just like a career yards per carry situation. And then if he were to play that many games, I think he would score a decent amount of touchdowns. I mean, I could lower this to 7 or 8 if I want, but I do think that if he plays, he's going to be good. And then I do have him catching 15 receptions, 20 targets, 125 yards. I do expect Evan Hall and Deion Jackson, again, they get the first 4 games to be a duo together. I think Evan Hall is probably the more exciting talent, but Deion Jackson's a pretty good receiving back here. So I have those guys both with more targets right now. I could maybe slide some up on Jonathan Taylor's end. But for the most part, I have Jonathan Taylor getting roughly 16 to 17 touches per game with the Colts if he were to play. And we're not guaranteed that he's going to play with the Colts. So when I go to my running back rankings here and I filter by PPR, Jonathan Taylor falls all the way down here to RB 32. He's not too far away from Alvin Kamara, who that's kind of how I'm playing this. It's kind of like Alvin Kamara, where Kamara suspended for 3 games. He's going to be back week 4, and I think he can be your running back too. I think the same thing for Jonathan Taylor. I think we're kind of taking that high-end RB1 upside away from Taylor. I think he could, when he plays, he could be a top 10, top 12 back, but we also aren't guaranteed that he plays. So there is some risk baked into these numbers. Now, with Jonathan Taylor, say he does come back and he's out there week 5. He's probably going to look really nice as your running back too. So where we're drafting Jonathan Taylor, I think you're probably going to want to be looking, for where Alvin Kamara is. If we go to Fantasy Pros ADP real quick, and I just like looking at Fantasy Pros because they take an aggregate ranking here. So they use, for their full PPR settings, they use Sleeper, ESPN, NFL, and I don't know what RT Sports is, maybe Roto Sports. I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and look at the running back rankings here. Now, they have Jonathan Taylor at 9. That's going to come down. 4 games is a big deal. He's coming down for sure. And Alvin Kamara comes all the way down here to RB 20, about 57th overall. So I think in your drafts, if personally, I wouldn't take Jonathan Taylor ahead of Kamara. Like if you're going to take a guy that's going to miss 3 or 4 games, just take the guy that we know is actually happy with his team and is going to play. So that's kind of my cutoff line. When I see Alvin Kamara get drafted, then I will be interested in Jonathan Taylor. So whether that's the 6th round, sometimes it's the 7th round, that's probably the hot spot. I think 6th, 7th round. And also like the other comparables, for Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, it's a lot like Breece Hall and Javonte Williams, because when I draft those guys, I'm not expecting them to be in my starting lineup week 1, maybe not even week 2 or week 3. I want to have a nice running back too ahead of those guys that I can start and see what these guys do, because we just don't know what the workload's going to be. They brought in Dalvin Cook. So in Breece Hall's situation, I'm not comfortable putting him in my starting lineup week 1. And with Javonte, these guys are both coming off serious knee injuries. So I'm kind of factoring in a 2 to 3 game ramp up period. And maybe I'll start these guys week 4. Hopefully, maybe I can start at week 3. We'll see. But that's kind of the pecking order here. I think Breece Hall should be the first one of those backs, then Javonte, then Kamara, and then probably that's where I'll pull Jonathan Taylor. I think if you're looking, around Madison, Dobbins, Rashad White, Cam Akers, like I'm taking Dobbins over Jonathan Taylor, but I might take a shot on Taylor over some of these guys here that we just don't feel great about. So Personally, I think Jonathan Taylor should probably be, drafted in the Javonte Williams range, like, definitely not in the top 24, 25 of running backs, because we just don't know. And say he does get traded to Miami, which, to be honest with you, I don't know if that's a positive for his fantasy value. I think if I have Jonathan Taylor on my team, I want him to stay on the Colts and I want him to play with Anthony Richardson. I think going to Tua in Miami is nice, but they like to throw the ball. They like to rotate backs as well. He's also got to learn, new systems and things like that. He's at least been able to sit in on meetings with the Colts and be at least part of the team, whereas now everything's kind of brand new. They might have a ramp up period in Miami as well. So to me personally, if you had to tell me that I can have Jonathan Taylor anywhere I want in the draft, I would say I'd consider it in the 7th round. I'll probably click on his name in the 8th round. That's kind of the sweet spot for me. So whenever I see Alvin Kamara get drafted, that's probably when I would go for Jonathan Taylor. It just sucks though, because you're eating a roster spot for a month, and we just don't have clarity, man. Like, he just might hold out. Like, if they can't get a trade for Jonathan Taylor that they find value for, like, what's stopping him from just going down on IR and not playing the year? So there's a huge amount of risk baked in here. I'd rather draft Alvin Kamara. I'd rather draft Javonte Williams. I'd rather draft Breece Hall. So to me, Jonathan Taylor's not going to be in my draft plans. I'm rooting for Jonathan Taylor because I think he's perfect for Anthony Richardson and the Colts. Like, that is such a sweet pairing, and that's like 2,500 rushing yards maybe between the two. So hopefully he returns to the Colts, but that's how I'm playing it. In the interim, for the first month without JT, the guys that I'm looking at here, and Zach Moss has I think he broke his wrist or something. I can't remember what it was. So I have him as the clear 3. I am projecting a 5th or 6th running back. They're probably going to add a veteran running back. I think Kareem Hunt makes a lot of sense. They did cut Kenyon Drake, who was in their camp, but for now, they only have Evan Hall, the rookie, Deion Jackson, who did some nice third down work for them last year, and then Zach Moss looked decent for them last year. So I might move these numbers around a little bit, but how I'm playing it is I think I'd rather have Evan Hall, who held his own in the preseason. I think he's going to be the primary ball carrier. I'm not really sure, though. It could go either way. I think Evan Hall is probably more talented than Deion Jackson, but Deion's somewhat of a veteran. He can pass pro. He's good with catching the ball. I think he also got the goal line touchdown in the preseason game a week or two ago. So I think both guys are of use. If you're drafting tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, make Evan Hall or Deion Jackson, the last pick of your draft. I probably would just take Evan Hall, but honestly, like, they're both equal dart throws at this point. We just don't know. But it's clearly these two. I still think the Colts are going to add someone like Kareem Hunt. So I'm not like going out on my waiver wires to add these guys. But there's going to be some relevance from Hall and Deion Jackson this year, to say the least. But that's how I'm playing the Jonathan Taylor situation. So I guess to answer the question, I'm not drafting Jonathan Taylor, but if I needed to, if I wanted to, it's looking like that sweet spot, right around Alvin Kamara, in between Kamara, Javonte Williams, between RB25, RB30. That's kind of the sweet spot. So thank you guys for your time. We'll see you in a future video. And hey, if you guys are watching this, it's Tuesday night as I record this. If you're watching this on Wednesday, I am going to be doing a live ESPN mock draft, 6 p.m. Wednesday. Central Time, that is. We're going to be doing a live ESPN mock draft. So join our Discord. I'm probably going to put a link in the description. Join our Discord. That's when I tell you guys what lobby, and I post a lobby link in there, and I just answer all the questions in the Discord. So thank you guys for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.